for the skin clinic treatments for the home and in store, this is grounded in a belief and an insight that the consumers are not going to continue to be happy with just having the next topical skin cream that 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 gives sort of in small benefits on things like wrinkles, like incremental benefits on wrinkle improvements or skin tone improvements. The consumers want to have the big changes that they see promised by cosmetic surgery and clinical treatments. But for the majority of consumers, that's just not a realistic proposition for multiple reasons, but potentially cost, potentially time and availability, the willingness to have the downtime and the recovery time that comes with skin treatments. So what we want to do is be able to democratize that and bring those benefits to the consumer in a more consumer friendly and a more cost effective way. So a brilliant example of this is light therapy for hair removal, or laser therapy for hair removal. Sorry. So in the 90s, it was a cosmetic surgery based treatment. You had to go, you had to pay hundreds, thousands, potentially thousands of dollars to have a treatment, to have this service. And then in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, people developed intense pulse light therapy devices, which were safe to use in the home and effective to use in the home, and could be purchased for a one-off price, less than the cost of a single treatment at a cosmetic skin clinic. And they've done really, really, really well in the market, and exceptionally well in the market. So what we're looking for is sort of the next iteration of that, or the next version of that. How can people bring the benefits of Botox, which requires a trained administrator to give the injections, into an environment where you don't have to go into that clinical setting? Or how can you bring treatments such as laser rejuvenation of skin, which is an incredibly invasive procedure, which requires downtime and requires recovery time, and how can you provide those benefits to the consumer in a more cost-effective and consumer-effective way? We're coming at this with a very, very open mind, knowing that a lot of these things are clinical treatments for a reason. They're clinical treatments for safety. They're clinical treatments for regulatory reasons. But what can we do to miniaturize and safetyize those treatments in the same way that things like microneedles have made the jump from the clinic to the home, or dermablading, for example, have gone from being something that was done by a trained esthetician practitioner to having devices which you can run over your face with very little risk to the consumer. So that's sort of a bit of a brief introduction. Does sort of that give you what you were looking for here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so basically what you're trying to look for here is, someone can go into, let's say, I don't know, a Walmart or something, and this is available. They can just buy it off the shelf and then go home and be able to do these treatments that are normally done by a dermatologist, or maybe a skincare clinic, and be able to do it at home.
Yeah. So either that in the case of things like IPL, it was able IPL for hair removal, it was able to go into that very, very consumer friendly and very, very consumer accessible route, or potentially something where you could go along to a Walgreens store and visit a beauty advisor, rather than having to book into a skincare clinic in your lunchtime, for example, and have a treatment that requires no downtime, that you can then go back to whatever you were doing after lunch, and it's not immediately apparent to everybody that you've had that treatment done. And and obviously a key consideration here is cost. It has to be relevant for the mass consumer. It has to be democratizing. There's no real value in providing these things at high cost, because that's what people already do when they go to the clinical treatments. There is a sort of a slight caveat here, in that realistically we're in most cases we're not looking for medical devices
Hmm.
because they come with their own set of safety and claims regulation proof that is required. So obviously, if that proof exists, if that research has been done, then that's one thing. But we're not looking to to create class 2 medical devices to sell to
Hmm.
the consumer just
Hmm.
because of the cost and complexity. It stops being cost effective when you're
Hmm.
doing that. Really, what we're looking for is, yeah, your LED face masks,
Hmm.
but the next iteration of those. And how can we stretch the technology? How can we stretch the consumer to bring them really, really, truly great skincare results?
Hmm. For the kinds of startups that are submitting to this challenge, what kind of data are you looking for when, when you're looking to assess the efficacy of, let's say, a device that, that they come up with? Are you looking for, obviously, testing results, as well as, are you expecting a, let's say, a prototype that they can show you? What are the expectations for,
Yeah.
for those that are
Um,
submitting?
Realistically, we're looking at sort of TRL3 and above, ideally. So we're looking for people who have a prototype that has uh, evidence, proven evidence that it works in skin. Um, so we're not expecting people to have come with full trials on consumers showing the full efficacy data that could be used to support claims, but evidence that they can demonstrate evidence that it is having an improvement in skin, or it is having an impact on a skin process that we can translate into a consumer skin benefit. Um, uh, ideally, ideally that would be some in vivo proof, but if it's proof in sort of uh, the in skin 3D skin equivalent models, for example, then that would be more than sufficient as well.